Hello, everyone. Okay, so this is the lecture for Arabic music. Um, this is going to be different, of course, than Western classical music. Western classical music is a lot more complex in nature and has a lot of different, components, if you will, that puts it all together, with the different layers in music and with the different elements like we've discussed and all. Um, Arabic music in that aspect could be a lot easier to talk about or to at least understand or comprehend. But when it comes to the history of Arabic music, it's got a lot more involvement going, and that's the reason for the difference in modes and the different maqamat, like you guys have seen in the video the other day, and also in the handout. Um, well, Arabic music is a general wording for, of course, for the music of the Middle East and or the Near East, if you will, and we're talking music that spans from, we'll say, Persia or Iraq or that part of the world all the way, to Morocco, and then of course, extends down through the Arabic Peninsula and all that. With the difference in culture for each part of these places, and of course there's a lot of collectives of different modes, and when it comes to the different modes or different maqamat, I would like to call them maqamat, uh, you get to see that there are some signatures to certain parts of the world, and you see that even here in Egypt, or if you get to on a smaller scale, music in Egypt is different when it comes to compare music from Nuba and to music in Sinai or Matruh, or music for in the Delta is going to be different than music from Upper Egypt, and the use of instruments is different. There are some instruments that we know, like for instance, the Simsimeya is known to be in the in the canal part or the Suez part of Egypt, and also you have other instruments, rhythmic or percussion instruments, and also wind instruments that are known throughout Egypt, like the orghul or the muzmar or any of those, they're just sort of distinctive to certain parts of Egypt. And the same rule applies, of course, for the different countries all over the Arab world. So of course we have all these, and we're not going to be able to cover all that in just one course. It needs one course on its own, and that would be the truth to say. But here's the thing about Arabic music. Arabic music started with, of course, a lot of interest that we show in our culture to text or to poetry. Poems are very important, and the language even of the Quran is somewhat has all these difference or different patterns in rhythm and maqam, that even people when they chant with the Quran, they have different ways of reciting the Quran, and of course with that, believe it or not, they need to learn Arabic music and know about the different maqamat and know about the meters, or to know about the rhythmic patterns and all that, to be able to recite it correctly. And even with that, there's a lot of difference between someone reciting it here and someone else in Morocco or in Iraq. So with that, you have the same text, and by that I'm talking about the Holy Quran, and of course with the difference in culture here with music, that's how we have all these differences. So in Arabic music, with a lot of interest in poetry, and that's the starter for Arabic music, even But that also leads to another conclusion, which is knowing that we pay a lot of attention to the text or to the words, and we have that feeling in it on how to actually put it within notes or putting it within certain rhythms. That is such a unique thing for our culture, um, and of course sadly, that's not the case today. We don't really pay much attention to text when it comes to listening to just normal songs. We don't really pay a lot of attention to text or to the melody. We pay more attention to rhythm or to basically percussion instruments, and that's what we see today in music today. But we're not going to discuss that here today. We'll talk about the difference here between, you know, Arabic music, like what the ones we used to hear in Muashahat or in, the Arabic music Takht. And today, when we have all the different, what I call electricity got involved in our music, and it really did not really have as much positive impact as it did have a lot of negative impacts on this music. Um, but then let's get again to the essence of Arabic music. Arabic music is somewhat simple compared to Western classical music in the fact that you pay attention to melody, you pay attention to rhythm or rhythmic patterns. So that goes alongside you have one layer of melody, and there is always that layer of rhythmic patterns that goes with it. You know, and we don't really have that much of harmony. And with that, I mean the traditional Arabic music. Traditional Arabic music does not really have harmony. It's what we said before, having heterophonic music versus polyphonic music. Polyphonic music is classical music that we know of now, but heterophonic music is one melody played by many but interpreted differently. And with that, you have a lot of personal input or individual input into the music. That's what you get to hear, and that's what makes it unique, because every time you get to hear the same piece of music, it's not the same. you know it sounds, in general, it sounds the same, but if you hear it from different ensembles, they will sound different, because each person has their own expertise and feeling about the music that they actually add to it. That's what makes it even unique, and that's why we never really get tired of listening to the same song over and over again. And that's why we're so fascinated with Kulthum, and even before that was Sayyid Darwish, like the one I actually have for your video for this week. So with that in mind, it takes a lot to comprehend that type of music for the Western ear, so it's not really that easy. And also another factor is the fact that Arabic music has quarter tones. Now, what's the idea of quarter tones? The idea is simple. With Western classical music, we have whole tones and we have half tones. So we have that what we call a chromatic scale, and also we have major and minor tonality, and that is it. Any given scale in Western classical music has do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. And going again, do is the eighth note, and that's we call an octave, because that's the eighth octave. So it's the eighth note. It's a repeating the first note again to start over a new set of 7 notes. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, and so on and so forth. And the same rule applies for any given scale. So if we're talking, let's say, from sol to sol, sol, la, si, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, re, mi, fa, and that's the sequence of notes. Okay. Now, for these 7 notes, they could be divided into 12. Okay, 12 half tones. 12 half tones. Remember the idea I was talking about the last lecture for the Western classical music, when they turned away from the major and minor tonalities and they decided they're going to go with the 12-tone method or serial music or dodecaphonism. And that is basically the idea. Instead of using the same set of 12 notes that we have, which makes 12, each whole note and half and all that makes that scale that we know. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, and then do. So instead of having that, we're just going to pick random notes. So let's go back again to Arabic music. With Arabic music, instead of having 12 of them, okay, each one of those it could be actually divided even more to 24. So with that in mind, we actually have more trained ear than the West, because we have not only we're only trained we're not only understanding the Western scale, because it actually exists in our own music, Arabic music. I mean, maqamat, there is a maqam agam, and that's actually what we have for agam. Is it's like, gharbi or Western. That's the major scale, and we use that in our own music as well. So instead of having only a major and minor tonalities, we have so many different maqamat. I mean, a lot of them, and it's also it makes it's actually made of having different sequences of intervals that is different, and that's what makes a maqam each maqam has its own signature when you hear it. Okay. um, I remember playing ney for an entire year, actually, back in the conservatory, and it was not really. I mean, it was hard to play the ney for starter, actually get the sound out, and that was about a problem on its own. I mean, it took me about 2 weeks to actually be able to play a note out of that instrument, but I played it. Of course, back then. I mean, I had about 6 years of playing the French horn. So I mean, I was fully trained on playing Western classical instrument. But then come to play the ney and play Arabic music, I played it with the sort of the Western mind, or the Western sort of mindset, playing everything as it's written, playing everything. I mean, pretty much reciting everything as like it's written exactly. And I was told differently, because when you play Western classical music, I mean, that's what they train us to do. Pay attention to every single little piece of detail. When in Arabic music they say, do not play what's written. You actually have to have your own input into the music. You have to be able to, play those extra ornaments into the music, and that's what makes it pretty or beautiful or pleasing. That took a little bit, of training to have or to develop my own sort of technique to play that. Now I don't do that anymore, and I actually went back to Western classical music, because I was already in it. So, but I learned one thing from that lesson, or from playing that instrument in 1 year, is that it takes a lot of listening, and it takes a lot of practicing to be able to play it such a way. So I mean, I'm very impressed to see someone playing the oud or the ney or the qanun, and being able to actually have their own input in it. And I understand now that it takes a lot of dedication and practice, as well as Western classical music. It's just a different mindset here. So maqamat, I'm not going to puzzle you much with the maqamat, but just understand that it takes a lot of listening to actually establish each and every maqam, or to be able to just kind of like, tell them right off the bat, oh yeah, I know this is Hugaz, or this is Saba, or this is whatever. It takes a lot of practice to do that. And it's not just a matter of understanding. You need to understand one thing, though. You need to understand that any maqam is stated in the beginning of each piece. So it's not like you start in Western classical music from the fifth note or the third note or any other note. No, you state the maqam in the beginning of the work. And, believe it or not, you guys are able to actually detect that really easy, because if you're listening to a singer singing a song, an Arabic song, and it's your first time to listen to that piece, and you never heard that song ever before, but she goes out of the maqam, you could tell that right away. We call that nashaz. هو كان بينشز meaning he's out of the tonality or out of that mode. Okay, so we have trained ears, whether we like it or not, listening to all this, music from the 20th century, from the beginning of the 20th century up until today. We have a lot of treasures in Arabic music, and Egypt specifically had a lot of input into the music. Egypt at some point in time was connected to Turkey, or connected to, not Turkey, the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire was pretty vast. I mean, they had a lot of hands in everywhere in the Arabic world. So with that, they actually gathered all these different maqamat, and we have, of course, there's a different mindset here when it comes to the difference between Middle Eastern music or Arabic music and Turkish music. Turkish music also uses maqamat, okay, but the Turkish ear is different than the Arabic ear, okay. How is it different? Well, it's different in the fact that you actually have more, uh, 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 you pay more attention again to the text and the meaning of the words, and also you have a lot of more connection between that and the maqam is used in. Where in Turkish music, they listen to a lot of music and they listen to a lot of vocal works, but it's all about the tarab. Okay, so in the essence of it is not really exactly the same like it is here. um, in Arabic music, or Arabic music in general, I could claim it to actually have a lot of impact on a lot of influence to Western classical music, because at some point in time, the Arabs actually occupied or controlled, better yet, controlled Spain or Andalusia at that point for 400 years. And through there, all these different Arab instruments actually made that transition to Europe. And that is why you see the lute or the oud. There is also in Europe a lute. Lute is it's pretty much the same design with a few differences, of course, or modifications done to it. But a lot of people know that the oud here, and of course over there as well. Lute in European or Western classical music was a very important instrument in the Renaissance era and up until the Baroque, but not after that. And also we have instruments that you could actually trace the violin down to them, okay, because we here in Egypt, for instance, we have the rababa, and you could see that the rababa is pretty much, I mean, it's very similar to the violin. It's different in the way it is held, but hey, but it still sort of functions the same. It has a bow and it uses the same thing, the same method. I mean, another instrument is the ney. So the ney family, you could really easily see that it's really close to the flute. And other instruments, the guitar, you could see that it's sort of like, modified also from the oud. The music in Andalusia was very important in Arabic music, and till this very day we still listen to a lot of muashahat and a lot of the different forms that they used to have back then as well. Uh, in fact, we still have what we call muashahat Andalusia, okay, and that's something that we really treasure and we still do and we still work with or play here in our own music. Now, understanding the different instruments, I mean, of course, you have that in the handout, and I believe it explains everything. But when it comes to different families, we don't have the same classifications like we had in the Western classical music. We have the classifications of instruments that are melodic and instruments that are rhythmic. So rhythmic patterns are played by percussive instruments that are pretty much not pitched, but they are actually unpitched percussion instruments. And with melodic instruments, you only have two categories. You have the instruments that actually play a continuous sound, and instruments that play with the plucking. So you have plucked instruments, and you have instruments that play like like the rababa, for instance, or you have like the ney that plays a continuous sound. But then you have the oud, qanun. Any of these instruments could actually produce sound with plucking. So that's for the different instruments that we have in Arabic music. With the different percussion instruments, of course, we have tons of percussion instruments in the Arabic world, but I only included a few that we know about here. So we have the tabla, we have the re'an, we have the duf. All these are instruments that we use and we have of course, the main instrument is the re', and then the tabla, and then the duf. Okay. I will stop here for today, but I wanted to actually tell you something real quick. Thursday we are off instead of Tuesday, so Tuesday we're still on. So let me know if I should. I was thinking about that, but I wanted to actually propose the idea to you guys first, and let me know if that works or not. We could just go as planned, and we could have the Wednesday as a Zoom, the Zoom meeting on Wednesday. But then we're not going to have anything on Thursday. We're not going to meet on Thursday. Would you like to, for me to send you a recorded video like this one for Tuesday, or to have or to have Zoom instead? You know, instead of Tuesday, instead of having that, you could have it on. You can have a Zoom on Tuesday and Wednesday instead. So let me know if Tuesday would be good for you for Zoom or a recorded video, and I'll take votes for that, and I will let you know, of course. Okay. Thank you very much, and let me know if I could be of any further help, and have a good day. Thank you.